You'll get what Don't
Just because I want to use it, right?
Good morning, everyone. We're going to start now. So we'll start with a karakia from Bess.
Kia ora. Welcome everyone. Tū taua mai ki runga, tū taua mai ki raro, tū taua mai ki roto, tū taua mai ki waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki runga te katoa. Come forth from above, from below and within the environment. Vitality and well-being all together in harmony. Ti hei mauri ora.
Kia ora, Bess. So we have an apology from Councillor Connell. Then we resolve to receive her apologies. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Moved by Rika and seconded by Peter. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Or any to the contrary? Motion is carried. So we'll start with public forum. Please be aware that we cannot respond to you. We can just ask you questions. And you've got 5 minutes to speak. So we'll start with Simon Wisdom about the Mercury,
That's me.
Mercury Bay Community Club.
Hi, everyone. It seems that we've come a really long way since a morning of January the 9th when we saw the forecast for Cyclone Hale coming in. We're going to take a direct hit. There were huge swells forecast and we were at a loss as to what to do. Opportunity presented itself for us to purchase a number of 600 kilogram blocks of concrete, so which we had freighted in and delivered early the next morning. Then we were in the quandary of who was going to allow us to deploy them, and apparently nobody can. No, we went to the top. We had a direct line to Len Salt, the mayor, and he wasn't in a position to do it. And it was as the sun went down on January the 10th that the waves really picked up, and the high tide was forecast for about 10:30 that night. And we were watching great chunks of land being stolen from underneath the club, undermining the footings. We came back to the club the following morning, and I tell you what, we were a heartbroken committee because the deck was hanging in midair, completely unsupported. And we decided that we just had to act. So we put in the concrete blocks. We filled sandbags. The community support was, and if we asked for a piece of equipment, be it a digger, a truck, the sand to fill the bags, because we weren't able to use the sand off the beach, thereby possibly undermining our foundations even further. There were over 100 people down there supporting us, and many of them weren't even club members. So we've got a lot to be grateful for. However, from there, the uncertainty of what would happen to the building was daunting, to say the least. We had a direct line with Len Salt, but there was a person sitting beside him who was informing him, obviously he's a relatively new man, and who informed him that he wasn't in a position to give us some permission to deploy our blocks. But the following morning, seeing just how imminent the danger was, we deployed them anyway. And since then, obviously that was a moment where the committee just felt that we'd lost the battle. Since then, things have really picked up. The support that we've had from Len Salt, providing us access to Dean Allen and his expertise. Subsequently, John Muston, and then onto Heather to get me at this meeting as quickly as possible. We're feeling positive. The insurers have come through, which initially our insurance policy completely excluded coastal erosion as something that they would cover, but because this event had a name, Cyclone Hail, this was an event, not standard coastal erosion. So now we find ourselves with coffers which are going to support the relocation of the building, and in a position where, so long as we can get this lease extended to cover the piece of land that we need to move the building to, then we've bought ourselves hopefully enough time, another 20 years perhaps. That's the reality of the situation. If the coastal erosion continues at the current rate, the club went up in late 90s, so 25 odd years ago, and we had 15 metres of land in front of us at that stage. Now we don't have any. We're just buying ourselves more time, and who knows, with the enactment of the shoreline management plan, there may be some protection in the future for that piece of land. But that's something that's obviously not up for discussion at this meeting. I'd just like to thank the whole council for just how smoothly things have gone and how easy you guys have made it thus far. And I hope that we can be assured of your ongoing support for Break Clubs. That is quite a significant part of this community. There wouldn't be too many of you that haven't been to a wedding or a funeral or a party at the boat club at some stage in your life. Yeah, any questions?
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Next we have Jonathan Klein for the Mercury Bay Boating Club.
Jonathan was unable to be here today. He had to go and drop his kid back at school over in Hamilton, and obviously hasn't made it back.
Okay, no worries. We have Noel Hewlett.
Sit down or stand up?
Won't even make it.
Hello, better sit down. Well, I've just got a written report that I'd like to read to public forum, please. My purpose in speaking today is my concern for people, and especially young people, to live and work in Whitianga and the surrounding areas. The high land values on properties with residential and industrial sites makes it unaffordable for people to buy or lease. In specifics, I question the huge amount of council-owned property and the burden on our ratepayers to maintain them. One possible outcome could be the disposing of some of these council-owned assets and properties with the proviso that they are used for affordable housing or business operations. I firmly believe we have the people in our community who are innovative and proactive, and we need to encourage them to stay. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Noel. Any questions?
Mr. Hewlett, could I just ask one question?
Yeah, sure.
When you refer to affordable housing, what sort of price range are you looking at?
Well, one of the great problems is in Whitianga, I don't know if it's through all of TCDT, is the high land values.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I had a property that was in an industrial site, and it was valued at 1.2 million. Well, it's worth about half of that. And it's the case right through that the high value of land is inhibiting the sales. And I've had so many people, I've been here a long time now, who said, we just can't afford to live here because there's nothing available. And I just see it as an opportunity with so much council-owned property that some of it could be sold off at a lower value. So it gives the affordability to be able to build and stay in the area, because this is the greatest place in the country, and help all I can in the 42 years I've been here to keep it that way. And
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Noah.
Thank you, Noel.
Next, we have John Ward on behalf of the Community Patrol and Bike Park.
Morning, all.
John.
Well done in paradise. Firstly, I'd like to thank the community board for visiting the bike park. It was great. Everyone was most impressed, and I think it was a real positive move. So I'll cover the bike park first. Since then, the recent events, we've had the Lions Family Picnic Day, which was the first time we'd used the stage. And that was really, really successful. Thanks to CFM, because they had their caravan up there and the stage was well used. And that was a real trial for us to see how the facilities would cope with that sort of event. So we asked the Dixie Band members what they thought of the stage as performers and the facilities that were available to them, and we got a big tick, which is great. So be assured there will be lots more events, to the extent that we are appointing within our committee an event coordinator. So events will go through a set channel, and that can be anything from meetings to picnics to parties or whatever. So I'd like to see a lot more community involvement as far as the school putting on outdoor drama stuff and all the rest of it, because the facility provides for that. In addition to that, we've got 50 students up there on Friday doing predator control and bushcraft. And that is starting to grow quite significantly as well. So the stage, for example, is utilised for them to do that. One thing that we would really like is to have a person from the community board that we go to. I know when we had the meeting, good old Heather put her hand up and said she's the go-to person, but I feel if we had someone from the community board to get an appreciation of what is needed, and we can eliminate a lot of unnecessary, not time wasting, but an extra burden on the likes of Heather. So if you could think about that, we'd appreciate it, so we can work through from there. We've got some things with the likes of lighting that we're talking to the council about, and that's taking longer than we'd like, but that's the process. Because up that whole area of Moai is a bit of a concern for what I call low lifes. And I think if we can try and eliminate that, it's a benefit to everyone. And lighting up there would greatly enhance that, and we've already got some cameras up there which we're adding to, and that would just start eliminating it and also assisting the police. And also I've got here, just hot off the press, there's one here for the council and one for community board. It's the history of the bike park, which Bruce Chambers has put together, paid for and printed. So you're all privileged to have a copy of it, and it goes through year by year, which is good, interesting reading. And I think if each of you can scan through that, it gives you good background on where we're at and where we're heading. So
You're halfway through.
Community board, community patrol. We, at the last meeting, I suggested people come and do the patrols. That, for various reasons, hasn't happened. So please, can you please contact me and we'll get out there and get you out there and give you an idea. We're just rescheduling our roster, so we can work it from there. So if you want to contact me, I'll be in touch with you, Joel, on the roster.
Yeah.
So we can juggle it around. But it would be good to get you out there. Interesting to see, for example, what is it, the biggest fishing contest in the Southern Hemisphere we had in the weekend, and we managed to get out there and just assist the police and just keep a presence around the place, no hassles. So it was good to see. Very interesting to see that, you know, what was it, 2,000 odd people that were here. Very few cars, lots of T-shirts with names of boats on the back of and what have you. But generally no problems, which was a credit to everyone, I think. So it's nice to know, you know, the patrol can contribute to that, and we're always looking for volunteers. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you have you operate community patrol Monday to Saturday, Sunday, or is it just the weekends?
Yeah, it's through the week.
Through the week?
Yes,
So,
and Friday, Saturdays.
oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. So we can, if any of you want to come out, I will write, and there's a specific, you know, you've got a busy schedule. There's a specific time, let me know, and we'll juggle it. We'll arrange patrol.
Kia ora. Thank you.
So question, John, what area do you cover for the patrols? Is it just Whitianga, or do you?
We go through to Simpsons Beach, and also if you want to, we have patrol based in Mercury and a patrol based in Brooks Beach. Right. So there's 3 vehicles and basically 3 groups. So Mercury is a group there. There's a group in Cooks Beach, and they cover Hahei, Hotwater Beach, right up through that area, and we cover the rest. So,
And what's your number one challenge as far as patrol? Is it getting enough people? Or
yeah,
cars? Or?
yeah, it's people.
How many do you need? How many do you need?
Well, we actually, touch wood, we're not bad. We've got another, I think there's another 3 couples and a single that are presently being inducted, which is a bonus, because quite often we have couples that are happy to go and do the patrol together. Some of them are a bit dubious at night, they're doing nights, and that's fine. So you just say, look, we only want to do days or whatever. So you're flexible. And the biggest thing I feel is presence. If we've got a presence out there, we seem to be going around, it eliminates a lot of hassles. Like the police did, the skate park, for example, very successful, great asset, but they do get the older kids bullying the younger kids and taking the skateboards off them and that sort of thing. But if we just pull up and sit there for half an hour, there's no problem. And that just flows through. So it's simple stuff. It's eyes and ears for the police.
How do you fund the operational costs of the patrols?
Council very generous, and we get funding from the council, and we have sponsors which also sponsor us. Right. So we're relatively self-contained in that regard, relying on those sponsors and the council funding. But it is working. Personally, I'd like to see a bit more involvement with the police and a little bit more exposure. I'm probably old school, but I was involved in community patrol in Onehunga, and this is quite a few years ago now, but when I think what we used to do, we used to get out and walk around the place and never ever think, well, now there's all these things where we're not allowed out of the car, and there's stuff like that. But I still maintain that parking, and I for example, we used to also walk the streets in Onehunga during the day and had cards, little cards, saying, a friendly reminder, your warrants, overdue, or your rego's overdue, and put them under the windscreens, with the compliments of community patrol. So it was really just an assistance thing. And I think that sort of thing makes a huge difference to the community and what's going on. So with the kids, if they see in school holidays, for example, if you're driving around the streets in the school holidays and the kids see you, it's just enough to stop the naughtiness, I suppose, that they're inclined to do. That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Okay, next we have Tracy Bell for the Speedwell Centre.
I think it's Tracy Lindsay.
Oh, okay.
Tracy couldn't make it today. I'm Marnus Pretorius from Mercury Bay Resource Recovery Centre Trust. Tracy's asked me to fill in for her. The committee of the, or as we know now, Waihitakirua, is very disappointed at the continued delays on the Pigango transfer station on that project. A year ago, we were promised that the facility would be open in December 2022, and we sit here today and it's doubtful if it's going to be open in December 2023. The impact on community organisation like ourselves, having to rely on external funding, volunteers, etc., is reasonably significant. The delays just meant we can't really mobilise volunteers now. People are asking, when's this thing going to get off the ground? And we just never seem to be able to give anybody a date. You can imagine the impact. Our funding is fixed, so that funding was granted 18 months ago, and every single cost that we can imagine has gone up. We were looking at concrete blocks the other day for concrete block walls. 1st of April, they're going up 10%. So that's a lot less we can get for our money. So that being said, that's the one aspect of it. The other probably aspect is if we didn't monitor the community board meetings, we wouldn't be none the wiser that it would be delayed. We get no communication from the council. We get no updates, no feedback, so yes, it's all around very disappointing. The committee would just like to convey that to you guys, and very recently there has been some movement, and the council are looking at ways to get us into the site early, but that's going to be quite hard. It's not, I don't think it's going to be that easy to get a resource recovery facility up and running before the transfer station. It's designed to be integrated, so I don't really think it's going to work, but we'll give it a go and see what we can do. It's really all for us.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Marnus.
Thank you, Marnus.
Grant Short from Masarangi Ratepayer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What do you know?
Morning, Grant.
Like I said, the word water. Got the three rivers in Makaranga were a bit confused and concerned about potable water and wastewater, let alone the stormwater, which is very topical at the moment. With the wastewater, excuse me, I see there's a deference of 2 million to the 24-34 long-term plan and some capital expenditure. And we were under the impression that the There's a consent process going through at the moment for the upgrade of the wastewater plant in Makarangi to cater for the new sections coming on. We also understood that until there's capacity and capability, basically titles wouldn't be issued for those new sections until that capacity was in place. With the deferral of the capital expenditure, I wonder where we are actually at in terms of the consent process and the ability to take on these additional properties. Equally, with potable water, the reasons we basically have restrictions over summer is because the plant can't actually cope with the volumes of the consent. In other words, there's a production hiccup. And also that potable water would be available for these sections at the time of the title issuance. We just sort of wonder where we are with both these projects in terms of capability and funding. It just seems that there's been a bit of information vacuum in the short term. And with the tightness of the budget going forward, which you can see, we just want to be reassured that these projects are going to go through to completion. And, you know, it's basically, we'd just like some reassurance and perhaps some disclosure of where both projects are at. So we can reassure the community that we're somewhat concerned about the status of these projects. Also, I'd like to make a brief comment about the depreciation reserve that council is running. I just wonder whether it's appropriate at the moment to actually be holding on to money for reserve for future expenditure. Yet the money that is in there is used to subsidise the universal annual general charge. You know, prices are going up, and to reserve money to spend later, we're going to pay another 7% per annum or 10% per annum for capital projects that could well produce more beneficial effects in terms of productivity. I just question that. You know, I'm not an accountant, I just my brain tells me that there may be better ways of actually funding these projects in the short term to get the community back on its feet and get these projects through.
Great, thank you. As you're aware, we are under annual plan consultation, so you can submit to it. We can't meet at this time.
Yes, indeed. If I just thought to make comments there, I don't know if there's any questions or.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Libby Riley or your search school?
Okay. I'm Libby Riley and I'm here to ask for support from the local community board to run surf lessons at Buffalo Beach Reserve. We've currently found out another surf school has a concession, which we were not aware of, and we've been asked to submit for the next concession round, which isn't until the 3rd of July. I have my level 1 and level 2 surf instructor certificate and have taught surfing since I was 18 years old at 3 different surf schools in New Zealand and Australia. After running a surf retreat locally, I found that there's a huge demand of affordable after-school surf lessons that cater for local families from Palmu to Whitianga. I'm local born and bred, and I've loved growing up here and was lucky enough to have my dad teach me to surf. There are many families who want their children and teenagers to engage with the outdoors in a positive way who do not have the knowledge to do so in a super safe or fun way when it comes to the ocean. There are currently no after-school surf lessons being run from Buffalo Beach Reserve in Whitianga, like through to Palmu. Running surf lessons at Buffalo Beach provides the opportunity for the public to learn and practice ocean safety, gain physical and mental health, and connect with other individuals and whānau in the community. When teaching surfing, my main focus is on providing an outdoor activity for all ages that is safe, affordable, and fun. We've received many emails from parents outlining why it will be beneficial for us to run out of Whitianga for the next 3 months rather than waiting until the 1st of July. The main reasons outlined are to make the most of the warm water and weather before winter, that travel costs are low when run from Whitianga, and that their children and themselves are in need of ocean safety knowledge and physical activities that are non-competitive. Parents are seeing massive increases in their child's self-esteem and enjoyment of the physical activity through having a go at surfing through our program. We currently have 35 tamariki who would like to take our after-school surf lessons with us in Whitianga over the next 3 months on a weekly basis, and 15 parents. There's a very low environmental impact as there is plenty of parking at Buffalo Beach Reserve and a walkway down to the beach. The reserve, beach and ocean is mostly very empty, and we have had only positive feedback from other members of public using this space also. Our health and safety protocol is very strict, and coach and student ratios being low and ability to run very weather dependent. These are all outlined through Surfing New Zealand's advice. We're working with Waikato Sports Waikato and Surfing New Zealand to gain funding and to put teenagers through the Level 1 Surfing New Zealand coaching course this year. We also have local businesses keen to donate towards our after school surf program in order to keep lesson and equipment costs low. The local business owners have had a go at surfing with us and are wanting to provide the same opportunity for other families. Some of the businesses include Infinite Fitness, Little Flippers Learn to Swim, Whitianga and Matarangi Plumbing, with more inquiring. I really enjoy teaching and I'm a fully trained primary school teacher. I've worked in Mercury Bay Area School and Taiaroa School, also at Riverlea. But my passion lies in outdoor education and providing an opportunity for families to enjoy nature and the benefits we gain from outdoor experiences. I am thrilled that we have found a program that really works. Local families are loving it and are really keen to make the most of the next 3 months before winter hits. I do not want to use too much time. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I have a few photos and letters. We've received 10 emails last night because I let them know I was coming today. I can hand one thing over, so check for now. This is just
maybe setting a total photo go. Is there an age limit?
At the stage we have 40 times.
Oh,
Yeah, with life jackets.
yeah.
There's some branding and the emails, 10 emails.
Thank you. Hi, Libby. So, just from my understanding, are you having to stop your lessons because of this revelation?
I've been told that I cannot run it until July, until the concessions complete. So when I went online, the concessions were dated till 2022, and they said they pushed it through because of COVID. So I had no opportunity to apply. And the surf school, I haven't been in contact yet, but I've decided I will talk to, because I've had some other advice that we can discuss. But basically, because of their concession, Thames Council said we cannot run them. And I asked a lot of questions and they didn't seem to know the answers. So it's just quite a quick process. There's a lot of support here locally with the community board, but I basically had that horrible conversation. Yeah.
All right.
So I'm just kind of figuring out what avenues.
Yeah.
But there are other licenses I saw, like there's a transitory license, which is a really low impact drop and go. She didn't seem to know a lot about that. So I was going to try with that avenue. You know, we don't have signage. We're not advertising to public. It's like a very local led. Like we put the local children in front first. We're not trying to bring in the money from the outside of the state. So yeah, it's just kind of
Hopefully something that we can get resolved for you quickly, because I know lots of kids are huge fans and adults.
Yeah, that's been just kind of on the side, kind of leave me a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of support, and it's just kind of making decisions. Yeah.
Thank you, Libby.
One more thing. And do you have nanny classes?
Yes. We have called Whānau in the water. Yeah.
Thank you, Libby.
Did you want to press this out?
Next we'll have Peter Wood on climate change.
morning, everybody.
Morena Peter.
I often wonder where time went fast, didn't it? I've got a book written down that will save us a lot of time. It's headed An Armoured Foreshore Seawall as a Response to Climate Change. And your first speaker dovetails with this. My name's Peter H. Wood, living for the last 14 months in the Oceania village. Before that, I lived for 40 years on the Thames coast. I've held office in Forest and Bird, Thames Coast Protection Society, the NZEI for 46 years as a primary teacher, and was a founding member of the Seagull Centre. I suggest to the community board members that they advise the TCDC and the WRC that managed retreat is no longer an option for seashore erosion in light of the latest 8-year report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which was in articles in yesterday's Waikato Times and New Zealand Herald. Pretty depressing reading, the end of the human race maybe. When the rock wall was first made, I read on the Thames coast how this was a local initiative along Buffalo Beach without permission. At that stage, I was disapproving, but now, through coincidence, I live across the road, lulled to sleep by breaking waves and feeling the shock at full tide of wave crash through my bed. It looks rough, but has stopped erosion that threatened the highway. A bouquet to the folk who unilaterally did this. This mirrors my experience on the Thames Coast Road, where the storm surge, with waves of 16-second cycles, of Cyclone Drina caused $2 million of damage to the road. I watched as contractors shored up the road with mortared rag walling using quarry sharp-edged rocks. This has done the job despite Gabriel. And for those who are not sure about rag walling, the inside cover of your latest long-term plan has a picture of rag walling. Our planet's overpopulation means we need land to grow food and live on, and it's a finite planet. The extinction of biodiversity through climate change has been pointed out by David Attenborough. So managed retreat will lose us valuable real estate that we need. And the dune plantings that are put there to take its place sometimes will be lost to the inevitable ocean's rise. And I refer you back to those articles in the paper. The population has elected members who do not know the answers to climate change. Note that the children are having to protest. So initiatives have to come from citizens. That is, our community board who represents us. I need the Mercury Bay Community Board to move a motion that they do not approve of managed retreat, but wish foreshore armouring to become protection from sea wave erosion. This can be taken to the TCDC meeting by our 2 representatives on the council and to the Waikato Regional Council by our Coromandel rep. When retaining walls are accepted, an interlocking block could be designed and moulds made that are standardised. Waste material and boulders can bulk out the concrete. The block should be of such a weight that 1 or 2 citizens can build the wall in remote places.
You have 1 minute left.
Thank you. The L-shaped block that I've got here, designed 40 centimetres wide and deep and 1 metre high, could allow folk to traverse its space and dispel the waves force like a sand dune because an L-shaped block can be made to slope. If we don't do something soon, it will be too late, and that's what they're telling us. I think you need to pass a decision in the minutes that, oh, I've forgotten the words, that going back instead of building a wall is no longer worthwhile. That concludes.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Any questions?
Thank you, Peter.
No.
So,
Yep.
It's very clear.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dean Albertson for the Kuratunu Search and Rescue.
Morning, everyone. I am going to speak to you today to seek landlord approval for a carport in the front of the search and rescue base. We currently, just to give you a bit of background, the group was formed in 2004 and the current base was built in 2016 on a sublease piece of land from the Westpac Chopper base. So we take a corner of the section. Currently, over that time, we've had 130 searches from their base, and we cover from halfway to Tyra right up to the top of the Coromandel and over to Takuma. There are 28 members in our group, and we also use our base as a training platform area for national run courses. We are currently looking to build a 36 square metre carport, which is detached from the current building. The reason for doing this is currently our large front door and garage door, when we open those up, we have weather directly coming straight into the base. A classic example was the last cyclone of Gabrielle. I had to go down there to help the police set up communications just in case the cell phone towers dropped out on the night. So we supplied them radios and a mast, trying to find channels on the radio. We didn't have any power down there because we had the power shortage, so I had to run the generator on the trailer inside the base. So I had to open up the front doors to run the generator so we didn't get gassed out, and the weather was coming straight into the base. With that carport, we wouldn't have that issue at all. So the current plan is to build the carport, the width of the building, which is 9.4 metres, and 4 metres out from the front of the building, which would put that carport in line with the front fence of the Westpac building. And then from the current position of the road that's just been implemented by Hoppers with the upgrade, we're still 6 metres setback from the edge of that road. I've been to the planners, etc., and the council and the building consent guys, and we don't need consent because it's under 40 square metre carport. And we will be building that under the supervision of one of our members who is a licensed building practitioner. She ticks these boxes. We've currently got a sponsor from Henderson Timber, and they will build the trusses for us with an engineered design. And the other sponsors, we've got Carters who are going to supply poles, Allied Concrete, they're going to supply the concrete for the poles, Peninsula Roofing are going to supply all the materials to build the entire roof. And I have managed to get $6,500 from pub charities in terms of cash sponsorship, and $3,500 from you, lovely folks, to build the thing. So currently, as we sit, all we need is landlord approval to say that we're allowed to put it up. And as soon as we can do that, we can get into it. Any question?
Okay, thank you so much.
Done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Alistair, road maintenance.
Just want to talk about a couple of topics, which you're probably both familiar with anyway. The short one, the food waste issue. Last week I attended the meeting here of the North chairs. And I raised the question of the food waste, the new system where the food waste bins is going ahead. And I was wondering what the plan is for that food waste. I think, Rika, you mentioned that there was no definite plan for recycling at this stage. I was wondering if there's an update if that what's going to happen to that food waste. We're going to have these new bins for food waste. What's going to happen to it? Is it going to be made into biofuel? Is it just going to be dumped in the quarry? What's happening to it? If it's just going to be dumped, what's the point of separating it out? My question there. Why are we making do that? Maybe rather than giving us food waste bins, maybe give us compost bins or something. Anyway, that's that. The other one is the roadworks. I mentioned this in the last community board meeting. My point is that all of these steps we've had on the coastal roads, why are we paying to dump this material to, in some cases, Matatoki Quarry, or more locally, the Bluff Road near Matarangi? It's been dumped to Matarangi, and I think we may pay as the council pays in the order of $10 a cubic meter to dump it on an approved fill. The material is not toxic in any way. Why can't we just dump it on the foreshore? It's going to be, there's a fair bit of fines in there, so it's going to make it a little bit of a stain on the water for a while, but after 2 or 3 high tides, it'll be cleaned up. And the heavier material would help with Peter's problem with it would shore up the edge of the ocean and give protection. I've mentioned this a few times, and I wanted to mention it because it's not really your responsibility, it's more councils. So I wanted to mention it at the last full council meeting. The day before that, Len gave me a call. I think he's on the screen there. Len Zor gave me a call to say, please don't come and submit on that because they had a full agenda. And that's absolutely fine. I'm just wondering if, and Len said he was going to speak to Waka Kotahi about it. I was wondering if there's been any feedback from them on can we dump this stuff without a resource consent in a crisis. The idea is to get the Coromandel open as fast as possible. Let's just dump the stuff over the shore. It's halfway there already. The shore face is made up of the stuff anyway. And then was going to inquire if that could be done through Waka Kotahi, but I'm wondering if there's any feedback from council on that. Is there any reason why we can't dump this stuff? It's not toxic in any way. So,
okay. Thank you so much.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Thanks, Elsa.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak to public forum?
Wake up.
Point on the previous minutes. It's 1 or 1 in. Keep the names as tight as possible. I haven't forgot my glass, just some notes. And it's really to speak to the annual plan. And I appreciate that we will be able to publicly submit an application or a petition or whatever. I'm not a great lover of slash and burn. Actually, I think it's the wrong way to go because slash and burn made its increased cost in 4, 5 or 6 years' time. Slash and burn on things like pavements and lighting are extremely dangerous because we have a lot of older people in this town. It's security for lighting. And when we talk about slash and burn pathways and driveways and lighting, are they talking about they're not going to fix the wharf through to Brophy Beach? Is that off the table now? Is it just going to look like that for the next 10 years? We don't know. But I think for this community board and these councils need to understand, I don't think this community is behind this slash and burn. We understand we've had an incident. We all know that, certainly as a business person, I know that. There's a reason for that incident, of course. We've been 3, is it La Niñas or El Niñas? And you know that? Which type will be in La Niña? So we're moving to possibly El Niña. That's the certainly forecast for the time being. So what happens in El Niña, the Coromandel, is we go to calm weather, and we go to colder winters, which we haven't seen in 3 years' time. And the point of the 3 La Niñas is that water just kept warming up and warming up and warming up, and then come like cyclones. I would rather see an opportunity where council thinks, okay, we've got to save $40 million, we've got to find $40 million. That rate's dropped from 14% to let's say 4% for the cost of the spend that's required, and then that budget is then, let's say for example, there's a 2 or 3% constant rate that is there till that budget is brought back up to its was 5 to 15 million, I think, but they might need 20 to 40 million. So every year we have a cost of impact
but it's built up over time. So we're saving money for the next event and we're saving more money. But everybody knows it's on their rates. But slash and burn is just not the right way to go. It's the wrong way to go. It's going to increase our costs long term. We're going to lose out short term. Council needs to find other ways to save those money. So in the Whitianga part of Mercury Bay, it's a $2 million, I think, cost. Was 3 down to 1.1 million spend for the lighting and all that kind of stuff, and $1 million, I believe, was the Matarangi Golf Club. So that would be, just ignore that anyway. So it's $1 million cost to the Whitianga Ward, part of Mercury Bay, and what is total cost. And then I want to talk to the elephant in the room, and that's that beautiful waste and resource centre. Unfortunately, it's a big elephant in the room, and I don't think people are spotting this one, because it was a 2.14 million budget. Now, if I'm going to go over, and I'd like to thank Councillor Rika for challenging Andrew Bowden at the last community board meeting on why we're now getting a peer review when this should have opened 3 months ago or last September. The question has to be a 2.14 million spend and cost of increase, that's 10%. So we can handle that because we're getting used to doing that. We always overspend. That's $200,000, $210,000. 20%, that's going to be tough, but it's possibly within our barriers. It's $400,000, $420,000. Are we now talking about a significant increase of over $500,000 to $600,000 to $700,000 that has not been budgeted for, has not been looked at in the long-term plan or the next annual plan? So I think there's an elephant in the room. It's going to be a costly elephant, and we're not looking at it. And we haven't allowed for it in this annual plan. So we're $1 million in the hole. You've dropped $1 million. You now have to find another $600,000-700,000 to make up for this resource centre. We've got $2 million worth of bins coming. We've got a food recycling, which we don't know where it's going or what it's doing. Is it time to look at some of those costs and say, okay, nice to have, great to have, want to have in time, but is it this time to do that? Is it going back to waste management, the new operator, and saying we need to rejig this plan? So that's all my thoughts. They're just thoughts.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Is there anyone else to speak? Great, thank you. So the Mercury Bay Community Board receives the speakers as speakers in the public forum, including any tabled material or correspondence. We have a seconder and a mover, please.
Again.
Moved by John, second by Beth. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Thank you. Item 1.4, any items not on the agenda? No. Well, can I have a move and a seconder?
Move.
No.
I'll second.
Bess and Rika. There are no new items on the meet. Make it stop clicking. Just move on to conflict of interest. Okay. Are there any conflicts of interest? No? Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder to receive the motion?
I'll move it.
So Peter
Yes.
and Beth. All those in favour say aye. Any opposed? None. Motion is carried. So item 2.1, the Mercury Bay Community Correspondence Report. Can I have a mover and a seconder to receive the motion? Oh, minutes for confirmation, sorry. Can I have a mover and a seconder to receive the motion?
I'll move it.
We've got Peter
Second.
and Bess. Are there any questions on it? No? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion is carried. Okay, moving on to the item 2.1, correspondence report. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move.
Got Rika
I'll second.
and Beth. Are there any questions on the correspondence report? No? Okay, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Item 2.2, the annual plan.
Are you going to bring the submission up?
Yeah, we're just working on it. Not one of them. I'll get back and see. So we've got the draft submission up on the screen. That's been circulated to all the boards to have a look at. Obviously, we've heard today from Grant and from Gary as well, some comments on the NSA. So just so you know where I've come from this is I've just taken the submission document and basically put the comments that we talked about earlier in the appropriate headings. So there may be more that you want to add, there may be something that you're not happy with. In particular, I'd draw your attention if we go down, Kelly, that the curbside pay as you throw, that the board has not made a recommendation on which option that they would like to have. So should we work through it item by item and see where we're happy? Yep. Yes. So sorry, we'll just mention when you're driving the machine here. So for proposed rates increase, we have just got the generic statement that the community board acknowledged that it's a challenging time for the district and the need to carefully consider the financial impact on ratepayers. Is everyone happy with that statement? Would they like to add anything additional to that? And operational works, the ones that I took out, specifically that have been discussed, and there could be more, acknowledging the need to make changes to operational work plan included. With the discretionary grants, they support a reduction in the discretionary and contestable grants across the district, but specifically for Mercury Bay, recommending the removal of the full contestable grant funding, which was 24,000 for this next financial year, and cutting the discretionary funds from 20,000 to 10,000, which is what's signalled in the annual plan. Did anyone have any comment on that?
Through the chair, just a comment that Coromandel yesterday decided to recommend that they cut their discretionary grant completely, but they were going to keep their full discretionary grant in 20k.
Right.
So just like
sorry, they kept their full discretionary.
Sorry, they cut their full contestable.
Yeah,
and they kept their full discretionary. Slightly different to what you're
the only difference we're making is cutting the 20,000 discretionary to 10, and which was that conversation, Rika, about how much we spend of that discretionary budget and year by year anyway. Does anyone want to make any changes to that, or are you happy with that going as is?
Through the chair, it would be helpful from my perspective to just get some understanding of previous annual plan reviews and the position that the community board has taken in regard to those. So some of the decisions from here are decisions that sort of support the general thrust of a cost reduction program. But there's some fairly deeper issues that sit around it. So I'm just really looking to probably Rika more than anybody else because of the history and for Heather to contribute in regard to previous annual plan submissions that have been made by the community board.
Yeah, as I think I've been quite vocal in saying, I found this whole process really difficult because we sort of looked at things on a spreadsheet without sort of looking at the bigger picture, for example, Mātarangi, you know, you've got titles becoming available for development out there with some significant issues and essentially in terms of water and wastewater. And I've always sort of said that I found this process of just looking at numbers on a spreadsheet a difficult one. It's hard in terms of, you know, we as a board, you know, we've had that session where we went through things with Kate and things like that. Does everybody understand the wider and broader impacts of some of these decisions we're making? I think looking at the next point with regards to the Three Waters investigation monies, I've always felt that pretty strongly that we should retain those full investigation budgets because it's important in all of those three water spaces. But, you know, what's everyone else think?
So just to be clear, I mean, this is what we had the session with Kate on the annual plan. So it's kind of what I captured from an initial discussion, and we've had time now that wasn't even the final proposed document. So everyone's had time now to read the actual consultation document and where that's landed, and all the supporting information on it. So, you know, this is open to be changed. It's open to be discussed. It's not set in stone, is what the majority of the board, I guess, and if there's not a majority, that's fine as well, because we can note that and we can say, you know, that the board discussed it and went this way, because I think the board submission, like all submissions, is to help the councillors make their final decisions on the annual plan.
And the other thing, coming back to, you know, the previous board really always sort of felt strongly about maintenance budgets. Gary's comments around footpaths and streetlights and things like that. I think that's important. Never going to be cheaper to maintain your assets, you know. So stripping that out, I don't think is a very prudent thing to do.
Yeah, and I guess the overriding factor of that is the affordability
exactly
of the level of increases. So there's a lot of conflicting pressures on the annual plan. You know, unfortunately, I've missed some of those discussions by not being able to attend the last meeting where some of this was discussed. But I just feel under-equipped, I guess, is probably the best description for, you know, my views on it, that these seem to be fairly far-reaching calls, and they need, in my opinion, some more background and information. You know, we've heard today some pretty good comments in regard to increasing costs at the transfer station, or potential ones, and where they are being funded and what implications that could have on the completion. So there's just one example.
Through the chair, are we able to ask the group manager to join us? Sure. Be part of this conversation, maybe answer some of those questions. Yeah, but that's, I think that's, yeah.
Right. Good morning, board. Where do you want me to start?
Let's start at the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm. Transfer station.
Yes.
Don't keep looking at me.
Sure.
Yeah, so the transfer station, fitting a transfer station is a real challenge. We've had some real challenges with this project. And actually, I'd say it's been a real challenge right from the start, actually. It's just been one of those projects that has been challenged. So projects were set a number of years ago. They've been changed and reduced a number of times over the years. We pulled out money previously when we were off on that budget, when we were in a squeeze, as often seems to happen every few years. So that's set us up with a real challenge to actually deliver what we're committed to for the community. So I don't take that lightly. We've also experienced some real resource challenges, both in my team, the project delivery team, where we've had a number of project managers. Anyone who's been around for a while will know that we've been through a number of project managers on that project, which is never easy, but also with consultants. So consultants that we've utilised, because the market has been so hot over the last couple of years, people keep leaving, you know, so that, you know, a consultant, the project manager or the designer they put on it is on it for 6 months and then they move on. And so whilst they have their big companies and they have document management systems and all the rest of it, it still does impact you. So something not to be underestimated. Contractor interest in the project has been low, so we went out to tender and we didn't actually get any tenders back. So we had people inquire and look into it, but we had to think a little bit differently, I suppose, about how to deliver projects often in Whitianga, and we had that with the street upgrade as far as where we couldn't make that work without really coming up with a different model. And then we had McConnell Down, who ended up coming on board and did a great job delivering the project. So we've looked at the project and about how we do it differently, and we've utilised an alternative model. An alternative model where we try and chunk it up into parcels and then package those up and deliver those, which minimises the risk, because rather than saying to the contractor, you price the whole thing, we're saying we need to get the drainage done, give us a price for that. We need to get the building done, give us a price for that. So we've tried to kind of manage it like that, but that's not without its challenges as well. Once we've started on site conditions have been very challenging. And I apologise, I'm kind of downloading and giving you a whole heap of information now, but they have been very challenging on site. Weather challenges obviously have been substantial. So
what challenges are you talking
on site?
Yeah,
with the material on site.
Weather, but
so the material
site challenges.
So the site challenges is the material on site has got a lot of soft spots and a lot of very wet areas, and so what that means is you just end up having to dig it all out, and bring in a whole bit of hard fill to build it back up to some good ground. Otherwise, you're just going to have problems in the future. So that's been a real challenge. There is a bit of material on the site as well. But often sites over years that are not a wasteland, but they're left
storage.
Things get stored and buried over years, and then when you go and start digging, you come across these things. So that's some of the challenges. Weather conditions, obviously, the first 2 months of this year have been bad, and that's really stopped us getting back to site. But prior to that, we had a very wet winter and a very wet spring and a very wet lead into summer. So that's also challenged us. And then cost escalations on equipment, materials, concrete, steel and everything has really just gone through the roof, which has outstripped any inflation that council built into budgets previously. So that's the real challenge. So what situation is we find ourselves in this real challenge, and so we've had to make the hard call just to pause it and review what we're doing. So we've had a technical review, which has thrown up a few differences of opinion, which is not unexpected. You bring in another consultant and they say you could do it like this, you could do it like that. So the team have kind of working through that with the different parties. But we're also going to do a full review of the project and have a look at it right back to when it started. So 2012, I think, is when it was probably first kind of talked about. So it's been around a while. So we'll do that review. So I'll get that review done. So that'll give us a really good basis of where we actually are.
So can we get an understanding, one, around time frame for that, and two, around, I guess you can't talk delivery because you need to obviously complete this review, but there will be a rating impact on delivery of this project.
Yes.
So as we're looking for, sorry, I know you're giving us a great update. We're trying to do our annual plan submission here.
Yeah.
So I've just trying to keep that in mind.
It is a real challenge. I get, for the board, you've got the board sitting here trying to make decisions on, what their submission recommendation is to the council around the annual plan. And the challenge is this: what we're talking about now is not far enough advanced to actually be able to plug into this and go, well, we know this is going to be the impact, therefore we can make these other changes in our submission to the annual plan. So unfortunately, we're not at that stage yet, but Rika is right, there will be an impact. Once we've worked through all the stuff and we know what the impact is, that'll have to be a special paper, a one-off paper back to council to deal with that at that time. So unfortunately, with the way our timeframes and planning processes work, we're not in a position where we can plug into this one, unfortunately.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Sorry, through the chair. When does this have to be finalised, the submission for the annual plan?
So, sorry, I was going to speak on that. We don't actually have to decide it today. We could leave this on the table. It doesn't have to go through a formal resolution. It's just the way that we've done it previously, and it's quite good to have that as an open conversation that the public can see. However, we don't have to do that because the submission will become public as part of the annual plan process. So you could leave it on the table and we could have a further discussion outside of this meeting and finalise that and put it through with agreement from everybody, in writing, probably by email or something like that. Dean?
Yeah, and just to add to that, just generally,
when it comes to preparing the deliberations report, what the policy team will focus on is the weight of submissions that have been received across the board. And so the key points will be the key points that were asked in the annual plan, but also if there's a heavy weight of submissions on particular topics, and if there's topics that have come up that are controversial or require extra explanation, then that's something that we can also look to provide as well. I've just tried to get from the policy team if there's a threshold or a cutoff or whatever to confirm whether this would be in or out, but they're not able to confirm that at this time, but we can ask that question of them. But certainly we'd want to arm the elected members or the councillors with, with the best that we can in terms of that deliberations package.
In saying that, our computer needs to start, so we're going to adjourn and have morning tea, and we can come back and discuss this afterwards.
Yes, we experienced some technical difficulties.
Yeah.